Welcome to Where We Listen, a place where every story is heard, and every experience has value. Today, we're sharing a story that reminds us of the strength of the human spirit, a story of loss, resilience, and finding hope when everything seems lost. This is the journey of a young refugee who fled his war-torn homeland to seek safety and a new life in a foreign land. It's a story of struggle, but also one of courage and the kindness of strangers who became family. Through his eyes, we witness the pain of leaving everything behind and the challenge of building a new life from scratch. But most importantly, we see what it means to finally find a place to call home.
I used to live in a small, close-knit town in my home country. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other. The mornings were filled with the sweet smell of freshly baked bread and the bustling sounds of the local market. My friends and I would run through the narrow streets, playing games and dreaming of all the adventures we'd have when we grew up. I remember my mother's warm smile as she sewed clothes for the local families, and my father's laughter as he told stories around the dinner table. But one day, everything changed. War erupted suddenly, like a storm out of nowhere, tearing apart the very fabric of our community. Our once busy streets turned empty and silent. The laughter and music were replaced by the distant sounds of explosions and gunfire. I remember the fear in my mother's eyes and the way my father's voice trembled as he said we had to leave. I was too young to fully understand what was happening, but I knew one thing for sure: our home was no longer safe. We left everything behind in the middle of the night. I remember gripping my mother's hand so tightly that my fingers hurt. We carried only what we could fit in a single bag: a few pieces of clothing, some bread, and a small photo album that held the memories of a life that was quickly slipping away. We joined a group of people, families, elderly couples, even children younger than me, all moving silently through the darkness, like shadows trying to outrun the chaos. We walked for days, sometimes only resting for a few hours on cold, hard ground. There were times when we had no food or water, but we kept moving, fueled by the hope that somewhere out there, we would find safety. I'll never forget the fear of crossing borders at night, dodging patrols, and hiding whenever we heard voices approaching. Every step was a risk, but staying behind was even more dangerous. Once, we were almost caught by soldiers while crossing a field. I remember lying flat on the ground, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it would give us away. My father whispered to me, "Stay strong, my son. Just a little longer." It was in those moments that I understood what true courage was: to keep going even when fear tries to paralyze you. After what felt like an eternity, we finally made it to a refugee camp on the border. It was supposed to be a place of safety, but it felt more like a prison. The camp was crowded, filled with hundreds of people just like us, displaced, desperate, and clinging to the hope that their lives could return to some sense of normalcy. We lived in makeshift tents, waiting day after day for news that never came, waiting for something, anything, to change. Life in the camp was hard. There was never enough food, and clean water was scarce. We stood in line for hours, waiting for our turn to receive a small portion of bread and a cup of water. Nights were the hardest. The camp would fall silent, and all you could hear were the whispers of people telling stories of their lost homes, their families, and their dreams. But there were moments of light too. I remember a woman who would gather all the children and tell us stories. She told tales of heroes and brave warriors, of magical lands and happy endings. For a little while, we could forget where we were. In that small circle, huddled together, we felt a sense of togetherness, a reminder that, even in the darkest places, there can be moments of hope and connection. After months in the camp, we received news that changed everything. We were granted asylum in a new country. It felt like a dream, like maybe we'd finally find the safety and stability we so desperately needed. But stepping off the plane in a foreign land, surrounded by unfamiliar faces and a language we didn't understand, I felt a new kind of fear. We were starting from scratch. We had no home, no possessions, and no knowledge of this new world. My parents struggled to find work, but without speaking the language, it was nearly impossible. They took on any job they could find, cleaning, manual labor, just to keep us afloat. I started school, but I felt like an outsider. I couldn't understand my teachers or classmates, and I was afraid to speak, worried I'd say something wrong. But we didn't give up. Every night, my parents and I would sit together, learning a few new words in the local language. I practiced over and over, trying to get the pronunciation right. And slowly, the words that once seemed strange began to make sense. I made a few friends, people who were patient with my broken sentences and helped me with my homework. Those small gestures of kindness gave me the strength to keep trying. After years of struggling and hard work, we finally found a place we could call home. It wasn't much, just a small, one-bedroom apartment, but it was ours. I remember the day we moved in. My mother cried tears of joy as we unpacked what little we had. It was the first time in a long time that we felt a sense of peace and belonging. I got my first job working at a small grocery store, saving up every penny I could. Eventually, I was able to help my parents buy furniture for our apartment. It was a small victory, but to us, it felt monumental. We were no longer just refugees, we were a family building a new life, creating new memories in a place we could truly call home. Looking back, I realized that home isn't just a place. It's a feeling of safety and love. It's where you can be yourself and dream of a better future. And sometimes, it's the people who open their doors and hearts to you that make all the difference.
This story is not just about escaping war or finding safety. It's about resilience and hope, about never giving up even when the world seems against you. It's about the power of community and kindness, and how, no matter where you are, you can always find a place to belong if you keep believing and working toward it. What does home mean to you? Is it a place, a person, or a feeling? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching Where We Listen. If you have a story to share, email us at where.we.listen.official@gmail.com.